Survivor's ready!
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to calamity. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, all personnel. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor, more specifically this past week. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. How are we doing, Tony?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Not so hot. Not so hot, I gotta be honest. Because once again, I spent a whole podcast hyping someone up only for them to go home the next week.
Yeah, I said that. No, I want to clarify. I'm not great because of what happened. I'm not happy about what happened, just to be clear. Just in general, just feeling good, you know?
Okay, yes, yeah. I try to separate podcast and personal, so when you ask me how I'm doing, I'm not going to get into, but that's just me. People aren't here to hear how I'm doing, right? They don't care. Oh, that's fine. Okay, that's very nice of you.
Thank you.
But I'm pretty okay. Kelly for sure that happened to.
Yeah.
Like I spent a whole podcast being like #1 secret winners edit. Here we go. Goes home. Caleb I think was pretty close to that. You know, and I said last week we didn't record 2 weeks ago, but if we would have, I would have been hyping up Bruce because Bruce grew on me, and so I'm so thankful we didn't record that week because it would have been another one of those situations where I oversell how I think he's actually doing good now, and then goes home. So I'm done. Predicting anything, okay? Like, just I'm done, And it's not even like that surprising, I think, of a result. It's just like I don't know how do I stop this trend of me trying to play into the game that these producers are doing, and I keep falling for it. Whatever it is.
Just don't trust them. Never believe them.
I'm just like I'm constantly trying to find the Gabler, but also not. Because
I would almost say more the Erica.
Whoever it is. I try to switch it up. I switch it up, and it still fails. I don't know how to do that.
It's almost like they're better at hiding in the edit than we realize.
You might be right.
Not that we talk about edits here.
No, we never do. But if you're still listening to this point and you don't want to be spoiled, I don't know why you're listening to this episode. Emily did go home. Emily went home.
Mary.
With
my coworker Mary told me that she listens to the show even when she hasn't watched. So spoilers ahead for her.
That's bizarre behavior, Mary. I gotta be honest.
That's what I'm saying.
You just want to hear our recap. We do a horrible job at recapping.
She misses when we used to just go step by step what happened. No, I don't think that's true.
That was a horrible decision when we would walk through the Big Brother week episode by episode. That was.
We try to go through it quickly, but it was always have to throw in our little jabs. At least I would. But anyways,
yeah,
Emily went home.
Let's talk about it. Let's start at the tribal because that's kind of the main thing. I feel like there's a decent amount to discuss here too.
Yeah,
there was a lot of dynamics, a lot of telephone being played of this person talking to this person talking to this person that led to a lot of different potential scenarios. So in theory, it was a pretty straightforward, unanimous vote, idle play, one vote goes home. But just so many dynamics. So I think we do need to back it up a little bit to say how we got there. But here's where I kind of want to start. So obviously Julie saved herself.
Yep.
Thanks to D. Do you think Julie made the correct decision placing her one vote on Emily? Because she could have had her
almost
there.
No. Because I think there were so many reasons for Austin to be the one that you get out in that moment. And yeah, I guess you raised the risk of him I guess I know about his other idol. You raised the risk of him playing it. He obviously didn't. But even if he played it, then both of you would be safe, and I think it would just be a revote for who's still available to be voted. because no one received a vote. Like that's the only way that I could explain it. Taking out Emily is taking out somebody who could be an ally still, and you're just left with still a broken up alliance. Like that you didn't escape that issue at all. That Reba alliance, there's so much distrust now. There's so like it's a war between them, and Jake and Katura might be in the best spot of the game right now because nobody's gonna go for them because they're gonna be start taking shots at each other, and so. And it's so much more messy now. Like D said he's my number one, and Julie's like, okay, I'll keep him around. Like it's outrageous to me that would be the decision that you make.
My only logical assumption here, and it's not based off of anything we really saw, but the fact that like he didn't play his idol, and he even said that he would. He's like, okay, if she plays hers, I'll play mine because that probably means she's coming for me. The fact that he didn't, I do wonder if there was something more there with him involved, or at least because the fact that like D still voted for her, and was like, okay, she's gonna play her idol, so I might as well just throw my vote on her to blend in, right? Like that's
Well,
something
they said to
that
each other that they were going to pretend to be mad at each other after the vote too. So maybe Austin's just included in that.
that's kind of my assumption, because why else would he not play his idol? And I think you're right. Like it doesn't feel smart to be like, Austin's my number one coming from D, and then Julie's like, okay, I'll keep Austin then. But I do wonder, because like initially Julie was wanting to take it out on Austin, like Austin's going to vote for me, blah blah blah, and then D kind of talked him down, like no, Drew's the one. So I do wonder if Austin might be more involved with them than the episode even initially let us in on, mostly because they want us to think that Austin could have possibly went home. And I wonder if this could be Austin going more with the two of them for a final three rather than with Drew. That's my only like assumption. But again, it's not really based on what we saw in the episode.
Yeah, and that's such a hard game to play where like, oh, this side conversation happened that we didn't see, but that was the deciding factor. That's always tough. But
Yeah.
I could see that conversation happening because I feel like they would have come together. Because D was trying to be like, oh, I don't think Austin was the one making this decision. And then Julie just wanted to go for Austin because he was the only option. I think there's a good chance Drew gets voted out in any other situation, but since he won immunity, he was good.
Yeah, which is one of those kind of crazy things, because going into the immunity challenge, it didn't really feel like it was a must need for him. But then after the fact, that was the first thing I thought of too. I was like, oh my gosh, like if he didn't win, I do think 100% she would have gone for him, because Dee wouldn't have protected that. Like Dee wouldn't have protected him like she did Austin to Julie's face. So it really was a must win for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't even portrayed that way, but it definitely was. Which you only take that move. That's an interesting thing. Whenever somebody wins immunity, it feels like they take that as their opportunity to make a move. And so he probably wouldn't have made those decisions if he didn't have it. So this probably wouldn't have happened. And honestly, going into this episode, I said the best thing in my head, I thought the best thing for the Reba 4 is this is your chance to get rid of Emily. And then next week, you can maybe take a shot at somebody within the group. And then you can play that game of picking off somebody outside. But then once you have enough numbers, you can pick off somebody in your side and play that game a little bit. But
yeah,
ultimately, I don't think I don't know if Reba sees it this way. I don't think that they can go to Final Four or Final Three with anybody that's not Reba. Like I don't think that you can take Jake. I don't think that you can take Katura because I think
interesting.
those two aren't the best candidates. But
that's what I'm saying.
Like,
those are the only two left, and I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
But the whole jury is you would think against them.
It's so hard to tell.
Yeah, those two are tough.
That's
once I said it out loud.
That's the other big question I think I have more than ever, which is something that we've seen talked a lot about this season, but the fact that everyone is scared to go to the end with Julie. Like, she is such a threat to them, specifically with jury votes. And that is fascinating too, because if they didn't say that, I would never think that. I think she's playing a really good game. I do. Probably just as good as almost anyone in the Reba 4. But like the entire group outside of D sort of agreed, like, oh, no one can sit to the end with her. So that is so fascinating, and I think like I kind of suggested that this might be more of a bitter jury situation, and I do wonder if there is more that we're not seeing that confirms that. Like, are they like I don't know, how can they be that scared of her when she doesn't have like as flashy of a resume? Like do they really think the jury's going to just vote on who's the most likable?
Yeah, that was something that I thought was fascinating too, because I feel like the last time we saw that was Erica in season 41. Like that was the last time we saw this person being billed as such a massive threat and somebody that we really needed to worry about, but we just weren't seeing that. I
Sure.
agree that Julie probably is this big social threat and people probably love having her around. That doesn't win the game a lot of the time. Sometimes it does. It absolutely does sometimes. But usually you'd have to go with somebody pretty unlikable to the end for it to really pay off. So it's interesting that she's being, yeah, just billed so highly as this massive threat that everybody needs to get out. But I wonder if in this case that's more a result of, we've talked about before, you have to find a reason to get somebody out, and it's just
Yeah.
become this group thing of she's the biggest threat because she's the one
Right.
that we need to get, she's who we want to get out now, so we're going to bill her as the largest threat, and then you start to believe it as the weeks go on, or days go on
Yeah.
for them, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, that is a good thought. Especially because it feels like they have several easy targets, like
Hmm.
Jake is still on the board. Um, you got Katura, who is not really aligned with any of them. And so it feels like you still have options. So the fact that she has just jumped up to become the easy, safe vote, yeah, I don't know. It's just like I didn't really see it coming, even though they have talked about this for the past few weeks. But like this episode, it feels like it all just kind of came out at once. Like,
Hmm.
wait, she is the biggest threat. You got Austin here, who's one immunity, two idols. You got Emily, who uh, turns out everyone gave her credit for the Bruce move. Post tribal. Like, so
We'll
how
get
is
to that.
Julie the biggest threat? It's just bizarre how they view it like that.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, it has to be that. And it has to be the fact that Drew was the one in control in that moment. And I do think she's fairly likable, at least when you're around her. Like I don't think based on the show she's come across as that like extremely lovable on a TV show, but in person I feel like she'd be a lovely person to talk to.
Yeah.
But it's the two people I think, because the way that I view that Reba alliance, it's D and Austin in the middle. Big, like they're
Mm-hmm.
super close. Then
Yeah.
Austin is super close to Drew, and D is super close to Julie. I don't see D and Austin being close, or D and Drew being super close. Austin and Julie, or Julie and Drew. So like it just feels like a line
Mm-hmm.
to me,
Yep.
that alliance. And so it felt like Drew's chance to like try to take a shot at the other one. And I feel like that's really where the battle is. It's just Drew versus Julie, and Austin and D in the middle being letting their emotions get all wrapped up in it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It is just like a straight line. However, I do think that Julie's bond to D, I think might be stronger than Austin's bond to Drew. And so I think
Hmm.
like let's take away immunity, let's take away all this stuff. I think if they had to decide, I do think Drew would be at the bottom, and I don't know if he realizes where I think he's kind of playing it as if, oh, Austin will never go against me. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think D could get Austin to turn, but I don't think Austin could get D to turn.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I don't think it's so much that D and Julie is stronger than Austin and Drew. It's that Austin and D is stronger than Austin and Drew. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think at any moment would go with her, and he wouldn't want to, but I think he would choose to. Even though I think he does think Julie is the bigger threat in that group. It's just so weird how now she's being billed as the bigger threat when I feel like every other person, they've showed more of them doing stuff than Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's entirely based on social game, and that it reminds me. I constantly have these comparisons to older seasons, so if they're ever annoying, just
Yeah.
let me know. It makes me think of Lil from season 7,
Okay.
Pearl Islands, because I feel like in that jury phase, she was viewed as this like you can't take Lil to the end. She's so likable, everybody loves Lil, and that was so much the narrative. and then she actually got there and just got obliterated in Final Tribal, and did not come close. So she's billed as a super likable person, but that's not enough to necessarily just win the game. But that's the last time I remember it just being like, oh, this person's so likable. We love this person. They're absolutely going to win. And I feel like Julie's going to get to the end, and it's not going to be that. Granted,
Yeah.
the jury loved this last move, and the fact that she did make a move.
I was
Matt.
going to say, I think before this tribal council, I would have agreed more. But I think because she has a flashy move, was well received. This wasn't like an annoying flashy move. This was something like, oh my gosh, she pulled this out. Like which I don't know if this is the right time to get into it. Again, with not having a backup plan.
Okay, so this one,
I don't understand how they keep doing this. Explain to me.
Okay.
Do you see something I don't hear?
This one makes a little bit more sense to me.
Okay.
Because there were so many plans going around, and you didn't know what other people were going to do. So you're in the situation where you're Drew, Austin, and Dee, and you're not sure if the other three are going to try to do something like funky and try to take you out or something like that. So you all have to just stand pat and go for Julie. If you're in the other three, you definitely don't trust that the Reba crew is really going to go with you. You think they're going to vote Emily. And so you have to just try to put all your votes in to try to make it matter. I guess you could say that would be 3-4 anyways, so you would lose that every time. I think that, yeah, it was stupid for sure, but I think every vote felt like they mattered, and it didn't feel like a group of 6 that were firmly together voting for Julie at any point. It felt like a bunch of people who were probably going to vote for Julie, but you didn't really know. And so I think that's why it felt like every vote mattered. Also, Katura, Jake, and Emily didn't know she had an idol. That was just a Reba thing.
Sure,
So they were the
yes.
only ones that were fully aware of that.
I guess, but they also all witnessed a shot in the dark succeed this season. So to me, that should have been a wake-up call. The fact that, like, hey, we did this unanimous vote before, and it didn't. Like, 2 times this season now, a unanimous vote has failed. And I think, like, yes, I think I give a little more leeway to them, especially, like, Jake and Katura, for example, who they're just happy to still beat, right? Like, they're not in a position to be pulling off any vote splits. But, like, for Austin, like, okay, great job not playing your idol, successfully read that correctly. But
does that reinforce your theory that he was brought in by Dee on what to do there?
It might, I guess. But then, like, the fact that he was so confident that she would vote for Emily, you know what I mean? Like, you would have had to be to not vote for anyone else, know she's going to play an idol, and then also not play yours. Like, that's putting so much trust in Julie, which I don't think he has. So, to me, it's more just kind of risky.
I think, based on your theory, which honestly, I think there's at least a bit of truth to it, where Dee was like, hey, do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which we'll see next week, and we'll probably be wrong on that entirely.
Oh, yeah.
I see it more as just a misplay by Emily. And hey, I love Emily. I think she was super fun this season to watch. I think she grew a ton as a player and like made some solid moves. But in this situation, she knew that she was the other person on the block, on the chopping block. She knew it was between her and Julie. And in what world did she think that she firmly had 4? Because she knows that the Reba 4 are really strong. She's talked to Austin and Drew about it before, and she knew that they were brushing her off. She knows that that's a solid 4. And so you vote for Julie just blindly and trust that they're going to do that and it's going to be perfect? No, I would always want to just have a backup. I'm just going to throw a vote to... What if she voted D there? And then it wound up being a D... Oh, no, that wouldn't... I mean, she still would have gone. But maybe if she had gone Austin... I don't know. What would have been the solution there? Like, who do you think she should have
I don't know. I would think maybe, like, Jake. Because obviously Austin and Drew still wanted to work with Emily. I think that was the other element where I don't know how secure that actually was, and unfortunately we won't know now that she went out, not according to them. but like she considered them a trio, right?
Hmm.
So I would think if she throws a rogue vote on Jake, they have to re-vote between Emily and Jake. You at least think that maybe Drew and Austin will vote for Jake. Now, D might vote Emily
Yeah,
out at that point, you know, so Katura probably won't vote for Jake. So I don't know. It could wind up the same. Um,
I
but
think
to
the risk
me,
is the Julie vote goes through, and then you voted for Jake. And now the one person who like is on the outside that might have been working with you won't now.
I guess so. But I don't think Emily was on the outside as much as we think. Like the fact that like, and Drew and Austin kind of said like, oh, next week we'll deal with Emily, but I don't know how true that was, you know, because like they literally have worked with her. She's not in the Reba before, but she has worked with them ever since they've been together, and voted with them and strategized with them, you know. So to me, like throwing a vote on Jake, like Jake's been the backup plan every week. He was the backup plan last week, right? Like
Hmm.
they split the
Hmm.
votes between Bruce and Jake, and Jake didn't seem to. Jake's like, yeah, I know, you know. So I don't think that would have done a lot of damage.
I think if she had done it though, it might have done damage to that specific relationship. I think the thing is with Drew and Austin, Drew is so much closer to her. Like Austin will always pick
Yeah.
D over anybody, and then probably Drew, and then I guess maybe it's a toss up now between Julie and Emily. Obviously, he was going to pick Emily in that scenario, but that Drew was the one that was really pushing that. Austin's kind of a pushover. Just a thought. Um, it's like just from what I've
Sure.
seen in the past few episodes, kind of a pushover. Um,
Yeah, man up, dude.
yeah,
Come on.
but it is insane. But I think just the way the numbers were and the fact that it wasn't a solid 7, I can see the logic for just being like, let's just make it easy and let's just go all on Julie.
Yeah, I guess I see that.
Now
It
Austin,
makes sense.
yeah, I hope it comes out next week that Austin was in on that in the end.
I do too. I really do. That would make so much sense. But it just bothers me that this has happened twice this season. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing because it's season 45. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, but if you go on Survivor and you don't know how like numbers work when it comes to these things, like you always have a backup plan. You always want to split the vote. You should never be in a position where this only works if they don't play an idol. You never want to do that.
Yeah, if they didn't think she had an idol, and Shot in the Dark is different because when the
Yes,
Shot in the Dark worked, they just revoted because there was no other votes for anybody else. So if that was
correct.
their concern, it's not actually that big of a concern at that point.
That's true.
Now the
That's a
idol,
good point.
you got to assume somebody has an idol somewhere. You kind of have to assume that everybody you're voting out has an idol, and just yeah, it's tough.
Well, like so in Drew's situation, Drew knew that Julie had an idol. So
Hmm.
Drew's whole plan going into this was, I hope she doesn't play it. I hope we fooled her. That's what you're relying on. You are relying that you all are going to keep this from her, that you all have a poker
Hmm.
face. You know, like
Hmm.
Dee knew she was playing it. I get that. Austin assumed she was probably playing it and just put trust in Drew. Why isn't Drew setting up a safety net there? Because Emily
Hmm.
going home isn't good for him. So in my mind, like he should have been, you know, the first person to be like, "Hey, backup plan Jake," because I think this was a horrible tribal council for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only thing that I would think is if the other three saw an opportunity there, and so they all put their vote on Austin's, let's say. Julie, and then the other two go for Julie, and then he just throws a vote. Austin's going no matter what, but if 3 people all vote for Julie, she doesn't play her idol. It's a split vote kind of thing.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe I genuinely think they were just like, let's just all go on, keep it easy, because it's risky splitting the vote because you risk like a 3-2-1 situation, which obviously you couldn't. Well, there was enough for a 3-2-1 if somebody played a Shot in the Dark, I guess. But yeah, there's always that risk.
I guess you're right. All right, that's enough about vote counting. It blows my mind how we can still have interesting ways to discuss it all these seasons later.
That's because hindsight's 2020. Like we looked at it and it's like, you morons, why didn't you place an extra vote somewhere? But if
Mm-hmm.
it worked, Julie, like it did last week, didn't everybody just vote for Bruce last week?
No, it was a split.
Oh, was it?
It
Oh yeah,
was
you said that
a
earlier. It was. Yep, it was a split for sure.
it was a 3. Oh shoot, what was it
Or
now?
3-1.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, and
Mhm.
even if the backup plan on Jake didn't work, Bruce's vote for Julie would have went. You know what I mean? Like they had. That's why I think again last week was a very good tribal, especially for Emily, because she layered it in a way where it's like 100% she's not going home. She had her pecking order all lined
Yeah.
up, and this week they just. I don't know where that came. Like Emily, you just did this last week. You don't want to do it again. You don't want to, plot this out a little bit.
Can we talk about Emily for a bit?
Let's talk about Emily.
It was a good move, and she was a big part of it. There is no reason that you should be telling everybody else that you were responsible for a move
Sure.
in the game.
Yeah.
Like you save that conversation for final tribal council because there's plenty of time to talk about it. You don't go like, "Oh yeah, I did that. I
Right.
convinced him not to do it." You let everybody else talk. You're like, "Man, I'm surprised he didn't play his idol too. Like that's crazy." You do that. That was scary for her in general. She wasn't even the target this time. She probably should have been because she made herself a massive target, but then tried to walk it back and be like, "No, no, we all did it." No, you claimed credit. You get all credit. Sorry,
Right.
sweetheart. That's how the
The
game
o-
goes.
The only kind of bizarre thing about that is I don't know if like I think Julie had the confessional where it's like, oh wow, her threat level's going up. Like recognizing that she is taking credit and probably has a lot of credit for that move. But like it didn't really feel like that was brought up a lot in this episode. Where like I don't like she didn't go home because of that necessarily. Which is kind
Well,
of
I wonder if
interesting.
Julie made that decision partially because she was a threat in that situation, but also
It could be.
I think 7 is such a great time to make a move because you don't have to worry about it potentially being a split vote. You can just get 4 and you make the move. And so I think that was the focus, especially with Drew having immunity. He was like, "Yeah, we're making the move now. Let's go." Kind of strong arms Austin into it, but Austin can't do it without telling D, and then that just
Yeah, it's just
and
like
then
it felt like Julie's motivation was more so that Emily was coming after her first. Like, oh,
Mhm.
she's saying my name, well, I'm gonna go say hers. So I was just like fascinated that her threat level wasn't discussed more. And
Mhm.
again, I think Austin Drew at one point were like, okay, we'll maybe go for Emily next week, Julie this week. So like I think it could have come out, but it's kind of amazing that Emily didn't go home because of that directly.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes that's just how the game goes. Like that's part of the luck in Survivors. She was the other target, and so she was the one that got taken out.
Yeah. I will miss her though. She was great fun. Uh, I'm still a little shocked, just because not talking about the edit, but we did get a lot of screen time about her, and so
Mhm.
it does feel like, oh wow, like truly at this point, like I pulled up our tier list and I don't know how we're gonna do this. I am so fascinated how we're gonna discuss where everyone goes now,
Yeah.
because this week again just shifted so much. I feel like, which we'll get to. We'll end on it. So don't worry, everyone.
Yeah. When it comes to airtime, like there's just certain personalities that it doesn't matter how far they make it into the game, they're gonna get a ton of screen time, and she's one of them. Carolyn would have been one of them. Obviously, she made it pretty far. But you see people like Shan, who's just like an incredible personality for this type of game. They're gonna get a lot of screen time. That's just how it goes. So it's hard not to be fooled by that sometimes, because I think those are the people a lot of times that you want to be successful in the game. You want
Mhm.
them to win because those are the fan favorites, the people who just draw the camera to them like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Final answer.
I'm trying to look over quick, and I apologize. I should have really done the math before this, so maybe I'll have you ramble when I quickly do it. But in our initial draft, beginning the season, uh, you had Emily, so now your last person is Drew, and my last
Okay.
person is Katura. I think you're still gonna take it. Again, I'd have to crunch the numbers because I had Sabaya and Brando back to back, which are just hilarious picks the farther we get from it all.
Yep.
Um,
Well, how are you doing the scoring?
I was just doing placement. So
So you add up all their placements together and who
yeah, and average it
has the
out.
highest number,
That's
essentially?
what we did with Big Brother. So again, that
Okay.
might take a second, so I don't really want to do it right now. Because like
Okay.
even if Drew went home next week and let's say Katura wins the game, I don't think that would be enough.
No, neither. It's just those were so late.
But how are you feeling about Drew? Do you think you got a chance to get a win with your pick here? Let's talk
No.
about his game a bit.
No, I don't think so. I mean, this would have been his move had it been successful. It was unsuccessful, but he didn't get burned by it. I think the little teaser for next week doesn't bode well for him at all. The like throwing the rice pot or whatever. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. It- but he's been billed so like I feel like he's just been so front and center for everything. So it's fascinating. I genuinely don't know who's gonna win, and that's always a fun place to be at this point.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't feel great about him. I think there's a good chance that he's in that final three, though.
Well, I think I predicted this a couple weeks ago, and more so than ever, really think he will get to the end and then get very surprised that he won't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that because I don't know, there's just something about him where it just feels like he isn't as self-aware as he thinks he is with certain situations. It's just like his mannerisms, the way he talks to people.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like a lot more like Bruce than we even actually realize in that way.
Mm.
And I don't think we're seeing it. Like, we're not seeing people have confessionals like Katura, like, oh my gosh, he's so annoying. But, like,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I view him in some ways. Even like after he wins individual immunity, like, I don't know. He doesn't really win gracefully. He's kind of like, oh, no one
No.
thought I could do this, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. I just think he is very similar to Emily. And we've made this comparison before. It's like he's learning how to have human emotions. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw that early on, even like with Brando, where he's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to work with you. And it's like, dude, you can't do that, So I think he's
Yeah.
got the very like intellectual, strategic, like, oh, well, logically the decision is this, this, this. But it's just, it doesn't translate well. And I don't know, like, I don't see him having the numbers right now. Like, his number one is Austin, and I am not even convinced that Austin would choose him over some of these other people.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. Is like it does feel what they've told us is that he's been running a lot of the Reba tribe, but you have to be able to communicate that that's what happened. Like that has to be the perception, because perception is reality in this game. And so if people aren't seeing that on the jury, maybe that's why his big celebration last week with Bruce, like maybe he's trying to play up for the jury and show that he's doing stuff. Maybe that's why he always has this big analogy that he introduces every tribal. They seem to love those. But yeah, I could see people just not buying into it and him honestly playing the best game, but just can't communicate it or they don't buy it as much as they should.
That, but also I don't think he's playing the best game, because I look at like this
No.
last tribal, just disaster for him. And I think I look at like most weeks, and I think I pointed this out last week, but like I don't know what tribal I can point to and say this was a good move that he did. I think at best he goes along with the plan, or maybe like, helps come up with it. But I think if I were to assign, like, if I'm looking at a tribal council and being like, who was the winner here? Like who gets the most credit? I don't think there's a single tribal council where I would give most of the credit to him.
That's fair. What the hard part is he didn't like make a misplay in this tribal though. Like he talked to Austin, who talked to D, who talked to Julie. You got to bring Austin in on that. Austin's your number one. And if like is his mistake that he's not close enough to Austin that he can make sure Austin doesn't tell D? Maybe I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot socially that was building up for weeks.
Mm,
That I think you're right. Like, it's not his fault that Austin squealed, and it's not you know what I mean?
hmm
But like, could he have done it a different way? Could there have been a better backup plan? Could he have finessed them all better so that Julie doesn't play the idol? I don't know, but I
hmm
think like you walk away from this, there's an angle where D could spin this and use this like, oh well, this tribal council, I told Julie to play her idol. There's a way that Austin could be like, oh well, I told D and I strategically didn't play my idol. You know what I mean? Like they have angles for how they can
hmm
spin this, whether it's right or wrong, to count this as a win. Drew has no way to spin this. This was
hmm
a loss across the board for him.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. It's just fascinating how he's been presented to us and how he's actually played.
That's why I'm saying final three, but little to no votes. That makes the
hmm
most sense to me, and the fact that I keep saying it shows me that he's gonna win. That's all I can. That's all I can assume here.
That's all you get from it.
um, you want to talk about Jake or Katura or both of them? Katura got. We finally got her backstory to this episode. A lot more screen
Yeah.
time.
It felt like something that would have made her more um I feel like I would have appreciated her a bit more in the early episodes. Um just knowing like not that but like when you get to know somebody it always makes you a little bit more sympathetic to like, oh, maybe that's why she was so distrusting of like Bruce's bossiness and stuff, just like the way that she grew up and everything. And so it kind of
sure.
sucks that we had to wait till this long to get kind of that context of who she is.
I didn't even think about that.
Um,
Yeah, that does make a lot more sense.
yeah, and then maybe that's not even like a massive connection, but
hmm
I think had I known about it, I would have been yeah. It just humanizes the person a little bit more. It's like, dang, that's a challenging thing to go through, and will definitely make you less trusting of people who are charismatic. And she's like, everybody else is under his spell, and I don't get it. Like things like that she was saying make a lot more sense. And so it's
Yeah.
interesting that it took this long, but I guess this is when she shared it with other people, and so that's probably why we found out at the same time that the rest of the cast did. Um,
Sure. It also, I think, w- just like Bruce had to go because we had to finish her complaint about him, right? Like
mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Like now that there's no Bruce to complain about, we need an angle for her so we can tell her story. It's just
They've done a good job of like not sharing somebody's story and then them getting up out of here this season. That's always like a
yeah.
fear of
Uh
mine,
huh.
but it still feels like they might. So like, it's not an assumption that they won't kick her out that episode, but yeah, that's always a tough part of the editing.
That was 100% my first thought. I was like, oh, we're getting.
See ya, Katura.
Yep, here we go. So then I was pleasantly surprised that she was, for the most part, less existent. What was happening
Mhm.
for the episode? And then because once we got to tribal, I was like, okay, 0% chance. There's no world where she gets any votes here.
Yeah. And then there was
Uh,
almost nothing from Jake interesting for me.
yeah, not really. I think the biggest thing with both of them is that they do seem to be like teaming up, kind of for the first time, despite them coming from the original tribe.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, like, now that that Bruce barrier isn't there, they're just gonna try to write out. And I think especially now that Emily's gone, um, I think it's just a fascinating duo.
hmm
Especially the lawyer dynamic, which I still find hilarious. And that is
I
my
thought she
favorite.
was gonna tell him when she was like,
I
"I'm
did
gonna share
too.
something," and I was like, "She's gonna tell him."
Which I think
And
I
then
don't know. I think I would have liked either way. But that's just
isn't
that.
Julie also a lawyer? Did I make that up?
Uh, no, it was who was it? There was a third. Oh shoot. Wait a minute. Trying to look through here.
It's
Is
not
it
saying on
Julie?
the Wikipedia, but it usually
Oh,
says on the.
a state attorney. Yeah.
She is then.
Yeah.
Dang.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, we haven't heard that at all. Yeah, but that's definitely my favorite part of Katura. It's just this ongoing playing with Jake
It's
like
like,
that.
I'm not telling anyone. It's like no one cares. To be fair, all 3 attorneys are in the final 6. Like that matters.
Well, I just love that she keeps messing with Jake in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact, like, oh, tell me more about that. Like, what's it like, you know? And he's like, oh, anyone could do it, you know? You just gotta do this. That's like just my favorite part is that I feel like I don't know if it's being used strategically, but that could be a very strategic thing. Like playing to someone's
Mhm.
ego like that, especially when yourself are a lawyer and know the buttons to push. Because I'm
Yeah.
telling you, like, if she gets to the end and pulls that out at Final Tribal, Jake's gonna be like, "What? You played?" You know what I mean? Like he's gonna have respect because she's played him for the entire season.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hilarious.
It's so good. But yeah, we had all 3 of them just chilling on the beach together.
Yeah, it was very nice. All 3 attorneys, just not talking about law. Who else do we need to talk about? We didn't really talk a lot about D. I mean, I don't know how much more there is to say. I think, this episode mostly focused about her relationship with Austin. Uh, the fallout of all that. Do you have anything else to add about any of that dynamic?
Not really. I still think D is playing a really solid game, and if she gets to the end and gets nothing, I'm gonna be disappointed. That's all I got.
Yeah, she's still a decent front runner for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Should we talk about this tier list? Time.
Let's get into the tier list.
Breaking my brain a little bit. Okay. So unfortunately for us, here's how it works. Either someone from the bottom tier goes home or the top tier. The middle tier has never gone home.
That's crazy.
So previously, Caleb and Kelly were both in our top tier when they went home. Bruce, Kendra, and Sifu were all in the bottom tier when they went home. And now we're adding Emily, who is in our top tier
Okay.
and goes home. So here's where we have it. We have 3 tiers, so 2 will go in each one. As of last week, the top tier consists of D. That's it.
Yep.
The middle tier had Austin, Julie, and Drew. And the bottom tier has Katura and Jake. So, I feel like we're gonna mix things up here.
I know
At
my
least
decision.
I want to. I don't know if we're gonna agree. Let's start at the bottom though. Jake and Katura. Do you think either of them move? This
No.
is so tough. No.
No.
Okay.
Or what's the tiering? Is the tiering most likely to win or get to the end?
Most likely to get to the end and win.
Yep, I'm comfortable
Which
leaving
is
them.
okay. My only, I think I would personally put Katura up to middle tier because I have someone in mind to put in the bottom. But I'm not passionate enough to change it. So when we get to middle, I think I'll give my case. See if you're up
Alright.
for swapping. But if you don't want to swap, I don't hate that right now.
You're just fighting for her because you drafted her, but that's fine.
I think she's a good player. I do. Jake, I don't think has a chance. Jake is like the one that I'm like bottom tier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So middle tier we have Austin, Julie, and Drew. Maybe not surprising, but I would put Drew in the bottom tier. That's how I would do it at this point.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were gonna go with. I'm still stuck on the aspect that he seems to have a strong strategic mind, and I don't think that he did anything this episode to cause what happened. You know what I mean? Like he put together a great plan to get rid of Julie, where no one was gonna do anything, and then it was just Austin had to tell D. And I guess
I don't agree that it was a great plan.
What do you do about that?
Because you set up an anonymous vote on someone who you know has an idol. I don't
That's true.
I don't think he's a strategic player. That's where I'm at.
Hmm.
I think he says strategic things, but I can't point to a single thing he's done this season that has been impressive. I can't.
Okay.
I'm fine keeping him in the middle, but to me, he is just above Jake as far as like I don't think he's got a chance to win.
I don't think he's below Katura. I agree he's the bottom of those 4. I think I'm comfortable with that. I think there's
I
somebody who's
think
close to him,
Katura has
actually.
a stronger resume because Katura has actually made moves that are separate from other people. I think his strongest moves, at best, are tagged on to other people's moves.
What moves for Katura are we talking?
She got Caleb out. He was the swing vote there. That's pretty good.
I don't remember that at all.
She helped get. She was the
Therefore,
reason
it didn't
Caleb got out.
happen.
It was a split vote
No, it didn't happen
because
I
she
don't
turned on
remember it.
Jake. That was a game-changing move. She also helped get Bruce out. That was a big part of her. I know Emily gets the credit, but like, I think Drew has nothing. I really do.
I genuinely don't remember that at all, but I believe you. Oh yeah. Okay. Now I'm remembering. Sure. Let's bump up Katura.
No.
I don't like it,
We're
but
keeping it. We're keeping it. I'm just giving my case. That's all.
no,
Because I know.
I think it's probably correct. It just
No.
hurts my feelings.
Once we swap it, Katura's gonna go home. So I'm gonna keep her in the bottom, just so I can be wrong, and then she stays. See how that works?
No, but now I'm convinced Katura needs to move up.
Did I actually convince you? I can't tell.
Yeah, she's made more moves. A game-changing move, getting rid of Caleb, that matters.
I love this.
And I do see the vision of it being very likely that Drew makes it to the end and nobody actually respects his game.
I don't see any other way. Really don't. All right, so
I don't see him sitting at Final Tribal communicating why he should win and people being like, yeah, that's the guy.
no way.
I see him talking a lot and them getting sick of it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, so let's actually go to the top now because I think we should decide: do we think D is still in the top?
Yes.
I think I'm comfortable with that as well. So then the question is between Julie and Austin, who moves up to the top team? This is tough because we got really opposite games going on here. We got, even though they're technically I don't know. Can we call this Reba 4 anymore? They're like, their positions are complete opposite. There's so much different about their games, but we're gonna have to choose which one has a better chance to win. You have a strong opinion either way.
Yes.
Okay, let me hear it because I don't know if I do.
I think we put the ladies up top.
Okay. I don't hate
I think
that.
it's Julie. I think whether or not we have seen that much from her game, she just made a major move, getting rid of Emily for sure.
Yeah.
Nullified all of the other votes in a tribal council. Did that as also a move where people knew that she was going to do that and did that with her and is working with D in that way, which matters. And yeah, I think they communicated that she's a massive threat socially, which until proven otherwise, I think we have to assume is true because it seemed pretty universal. Also, looking at the jury's reaction was huge.
Yep.
So I just think, yeah, she's playing.
I also
probably the best
think
game.
when Emily walked out and said, "My vote at the end is going to go to the person who played the best game."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think she's talking about Julie. I do. You know, especially in that moment. Maybe, you know, I don't think Julie has the best game overall right now in this moment, but like, I think that's what that, you know, like, hey, no hard feelings. Like, Emily is not someone to take it. That's the perfect person to blindside in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, I agree with that. I just like, I don't know. I feel like Austin and Drew are both kind of similar. Where like, starting off, they were strong, right? Like they're
Mhm.
finding advantages. They're blindsiding their own tribe. You know, they got this alliance. But like the past few weeks, like I need Austin to do something. I need them to do
Exactly.
something independent because
Mhm.
right now it does feel like he's just following either D or Drew and just kind of
Mhm.
listening to them. And I'm like, Austin, you need some individual agency here to separate your game. And I think Julie has that. Julie has now an individual game apart from that.
It's this idea of like you don't want to make a move too early. You can make small moves early though. Like you can do little things to make it your game seem respectable without majorly raising your threat level. It's not easy, but like just waiting around and then hoping one big move at the end will pull you through is a risk to me.
Right. Yep. Completely agree. Yeah. I really don't love this tier list, but I agree with it. I think I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
I honestly like. Here's the thing, though. After saying all this, if Drew ends up winning, I don't know if I'll be that surprised. And if Jake ends up winning, you know what I mean? Like, I literally could talk myself into any one of these. And once we get to the end, I'm going to find things that, oh, this makes sense, which is a tough place to be in when we're trying to be definitive with this is how this show's going to end.
We are definitive.
We're way too definitive in our predictions. That's my at least I am.
What do you mean? You made an argument and then you tried to back out of it because you were trying to not jinx yourself.
I'm trying to change because every time I come on this podcast and say this is how it's happening, I'm wrong. And that's what I'm doing with Drew. Like, I am so convinced of what's going to happen with Drew, which tells me he's going to win the game. Like, that's just how this works. I can't explain it, but I don't know what's wrong with me. That's just how it works.
I like it.
All right. Anything else to say about this episode at all?
No,
Wrap
I don't
it
think
up.
so.
All right. Sounds good to me. We'll be back next week. We got 2 more episodes. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Because
I think
by
so.
the end of next week will be the final 5, and then on December 20th will be the finale week of Christmas. Wow. Then we'll take a little break. Much needed by us.
Ooh,
We earned it.
maybe I'll do a Survivor finale watch party.
Ooh.
Well, the only time I can ever do it.
I do have a watch party weekly.
Show
two-
off.
2 weeks ago we didn't have it. Thanksgiving last week, I was getting over COVID, didn't have it. People showed up last night and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just never caught up the past 2 weeks." Is that not madness?
It's outrageous. I guess maybe they don't have Paramount Plus.
I think they do. I mean, they're just. I turned the episode on, right? It's like it's a little past 7. We usually we linger, we pause it on YouTube TV so we can skip the commercials, you know.
Yeah.
Start the episode, right? Like 7:15. The recap, they're like, "Oh, Bruce went home." I turned. I said, "What? What do you mean, Bruce? Yes, Bruce went home." They're like, "Ah, yeah, we just never got to it." Just like, what is going on? I need new friends.
I think we just love it too much, Nathan. We might be the weird ones. No, well,
I don't think that's weird. I don't think that's weird to watch.
No, I think
episodes in order.
No, that I agree with. That I agree with.
How can, especially in a reality show where everything builds.
How much so much of it relies on like how we analyze it and like that's how we process the game. They just need to know who went home. That's all they care about.
I guess
they're just there for the drama and for the fun.
I was like, how can you understand these dynamics when you didn't see what happened last week?
Good question.
Blew my mind. So then I had to go back and show them all the guys' night because I'm like, yeah, it was actually a really funny montage. You should watch it. You know what I mean? Like,
you gotta hear the farts.
This is, oh my gosh, blew my mind. All right, that's it.
I'm surprised they could fart, dude. Let's be honest.
Surprised they could?
Well, I mean, I would feel like you're just out in the jungle for a certain amount of time. You're not eating much. You just don't have any gas.
I think they said that. I think they said this is my first time. And then Drew was like, "Oh, I did it the merge. I think it was a merge fart." That's what Drew said.
He did.
So
say
they
that.
were, yeah. I don't know, whatever.
See,
okay.
Drew's funny.
For more episodes, visit notgameopersonal.com. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere listen to podcasts. Really, we're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAP Pod. That's at NGAP Pod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. We will see you next week.
6 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.